crazy.
He's not trying to hop away, eh?
It's too fat.
Sorry.
Oh man, what a day. What a day. Power went out here. I don't know what time the power went out, about 11 o'clock in the morning or something. Where I was actually sitting in here. I think I was actually on my phone with Nino. And all of a sudden the power flickered out. And a split second after the power went out, kaboom! Heard the big kapow as a, what is it called? What is it? Transformer, I guess, blew up just down the road, and it only took the power out of 16 different residences in the area. Where, you know, normally when the power gets knocked out from a storm or something, it's thousands, right? Just us. Power came on, I don't know, maybe half an hour ago or something. But anyway, not much sleep last night. I don't know why. Lots going on the planet today. Every day, lots going on. Let a bit of a rip on a rant go on the Rumble channel today just because I had to. Sometimes you just gotta let it rip, right? And on that note, I follow a lot of people who are passionate about making a difference between right and wrong for the people, not just for themselves. A lot of people I know, they don't have to. They don't have to spend the time of life trying to right wrongs and trying to bring light on the good to all the people. They don't have to, but they do. It's a very generous gift, time of life. But anyways, I think Nino, a bunch of truth sharers I'm aware of and follow are really being challenged to the max. But anyways, I was talking to Nino, and I think he's getting himself a little burnt out, as expected. The guy's non-stop trying to fight for his country, his people, for what's right. So anyways, I I threw some comedy at him, threw some shit at him today randomly, and asked him if you want to come on board here and I'll have a chit chat one day and not talk about all the grief and all the weird shit and just talk about some cool adventure stories. I like that. I love sharing my adventure stories, obviously. And Nino had mentioned earlier to us, or me, he was actually in a freshwater swimming hole in Australia and was being chased down by a crocodile, swimming for his frickin' life. Apparently he survived out in the outback with a handful of people in the middle of nowhere, some aboriginals. And I think those are the stories I would like. Those stories pique my interest. I want to hear them. So I asked him if he wanted to take a break from the battle and just have a regular old bullshit session and talk about some adventures and crazy stories. And he's totally in. So am I. And I might have a few I can pop up that I haven't shared with all you yet too. So we're gonna do it. Probably, what are we? Monday today or something? I have to go to the big smoke, the big city of Vancouver. We have to go for 2 days. Wednesday, Thursday. So what? Tuesday, Wednesday, back Thursday. So maybe Friday or Saturday. What else? I also found the phone number to a logger who emailed us last week from Princeton, British Columbia. He was the man who saw the small creature rip across the road between him and a logging truck early in the morning in the dark. Apparently it looked like it went scooting up the bank but rolled back down and got up kind of looking a little dazed. And he stopped, pulled over, stood on the floor of his truck and opened up the door and was looking down on this thing. Excuse me, and a great big huge muscular massive thing jumped off of that high bank, boom, landed on the logging road, grabbed that thing and leapt off the side of the road down the steep bank in the darkness. And I think he said he had some other experiences as well. So, he's a fellow hunter. And I love hearing from the loggers, especially in my backyard. So anyways, I couldn't find his email. But his phone number was in his message to us. So I texted him today to also invite him to see if he wanted to do a Zoom call with me and discuss everything we can. Swap info, swap stories, hear what he's learned, hear what he's seen, maybe talk some hunting, whatever. I'm sure we are on the same page on a bunch of topics and we'd be able to have some good, interesting banter. So I sent a text off to him too, waiting for his reply. Who knows, he could be in camp logging or on a hunting trip, right? So no reply yet. What else? Look at these little gems. Years ago, I used to force myself to wear a video camera around my neck guiding in the remote northern Rockies and the Yukon. And I don't know why, I always made myself bring a video camera with me. It was the high 8 tapes at that time. Actually, the mediocre sized tapes was one camera I had, and then those little mini tapes, mini high 8, whatever it's called. I had acres of them. And then I paid for them to be dropped off. I dropped them off at a photo place. And I got all that content put into discs. And I found them all the other day. You know what shit is on here that I can share with everybody? I haven't seen in years. Yukon. First year the mare showed up, fish and goat kill. The Yukon. Mountain goat hunting. My mare, she first showed up. Tachinshini, grizzly, Yukon, elk, sturgeon fishing. Crazy. Elk, Tachinshini. Tachinshini is that piece of land, remote northwestern corner of British Columbia. Spring black bears and grizzly. Man, I can't get nothing in that one. Uh-oh, nothing in that one. Can't even read my own writing. Something. I think it said grizzly on there. Holy cow. Yash Creek, that's a creek off the Racing River in northeastern British Columbia where I got it for sheep. And it says my grizzly Stone Mountain Safaris where I got it at. There's gonna be a whole pile of stuff. This is like opening up a frickin' time machine, right? Crazy. Looking forward to sharing all that. And I will. Now, winding down, let's get some voices heard. Now this, I went back to another folder where I had a whole bunch of emails written down. And this is a long one. And this is we're going to revisit Edgar's first email to us. I just came across it and it's been a while. Almost 3 years ago. Crazy, right? Let's read it again. This is going to be very interesting for all the thousands of new people here, because you've heard this name mentioned before. This is very, very interesting. This kicked us off in a direction of knowledge gaining unprecedented. This is titled Life-Changing Situation. Hi, Steve. I still really can't believe that anyone, has given over his already fantastic channel to the many victims of these creatures. I think everyone who has contacted you, along with every single subscriber, owes you a debt of gratitude for what you're doing, Steve. Thank you. I had a life-changing situation happen to me in October 2020. And if anything, what happened to me on the 15th of October is getting, if possible, worse by the day. I'm a semi-retired nuclear physicist. Traveled the world as a consultant. Seen some odd things in many places, but nothing like what's happened to me fairly recently. Home for me is Wales. I have dual Canadian/British nationality, being born in Langford on Vancouver Island in 1947. I'm an only child. My mum was Welsh, having married my father when he was posted to the UK during World War II. As a father, he was a dud. As a husband, he was worse, a heavy drinking bully who made the lives of those close to him a living hell. I have memories of that period, and when my mum divorced the man, she took me to Wales, as far away from that idiot as she could get. By one of those curious tricks of fate, when in Canada for work reasons many moons ago, I met my wonderful wife, who, would you believe, had migrated with her family to Canada from Wales in the late 50s. She and her family migrated to Lillooet, and I met her when I worked for a semester lecturing at UVic. That's the University of Victoria on Vancouver Island. I'm lucky in that I spend almost equal amounts of time between Wales and Vancouver Island. Recently, however, due to this so-called pandemic, I'm stuck here and my wife is in Canada. It's been that way since last August. The strain on us both is immense for obvious reasons. And let me say something first. That may sound weird at the very least. Over many years traveling to visit and work in many different countries, I've seen Sasquatches and Bigfoots many times. Always, however, on the screen of some CCTV system or other. For whatever unknown reasons, nuclear installations, particularly those that are military ones, seem to have a peculiar interest for these creatures, whether it be a civilian state or military installation. These beings are regularly seen trying to breach, and sometimes succeeding, the boundary walls and fences of sites. I've been in many sites where an alarm will go off and a security breach is made or attempted. Most of these alerts are kind of benign. When some people see a "keep out" sign, it seems they have to try and defeat it. These folks are easily picked up by security, but in a very small number of cases, the trespasser will be a Bigfoot, sometimes more than one. I've watched them somehow get past 2, sometimes 3 barriers before a security squad will get to them. You will often see them trying to get over a fence, electrified or not, but, another oddity, you won't ever see them get out. In the past 40 years, I've either watched this on a TV screen or seen an entry in a logbook some 30 plus times. Whilst shocking to see, it's not frightening, simply because it's a bit like watching a TV show. I watched live twice in Canada at the nuclear power plant at Mesas Bay in New Brunswick, but it's happened across the world. When logged for security purposes, it's written as curious juveniles who ran away without gaining access, and underlined. Take note of the word juveniles. That's what they've been referred to in this group of people, meaning scientists around the globe. tight-knit nuclear physicists. Anyway, to get back to my problem, I always take a part of every other day to do a 4 to 8 mile hike on a mountain forest trail close to where I live. At my age, 73, I nowadays drive about 5 miles on a minor road to an entrance point where I leave the car, and then hike my way into the forest. It's a lot like the places I've hiked in Canada, although the mountain trail I hike tops out at just 2,400 feet above sea level. It's a rough, fairly steep track that gives me a great workout. I'd hiked my normal 4 miles in, sat on my usual large rock that I've stopped to sit on many times, pulled out my thermos, just about to pour my tea when I realized I wasn't alone. No more than 40, maybe 50 meters from where I sat, a very fit-looking, very muscular guy appeared to be doing some kind of exercise routine. He was between 2 trees with his back to me, leaping quite high, as if trying to touch the branches high up in the tree. He had done this about 3 to 4 times, getting a little higher each time. He made no sound, other than emitting a huge, noisy blast of breath each time he launched himself upwards. I suddenly realized there was something not quite right about what he was doing. With each leap he took, the upper part of his body seemed to become transparent, vanishing. I could only clearly see the foliage where his upper body should be. As he leapt with his arms stretched upward, both arms, head and chest, almost to his waist, became see-through. As I realized this was happening, I just thought to myself, how in the hell was he doing this trick? When he suddenly stopped his jumping and turned to face me. He stared very intensely at me, a look that sent shivers down my spine. I don't know how long we looked at each other. It could have been 5 seconds, but could have been 5 minutes or 5 hours. It felt like forever. One thing I do know is that stare seemed to be one of pure hatred. Yet, I couldn't take my eyes away. I can't be sure exactly what happened next. I think he took a few backward steps into the trees, still giving me this intense stare, and hid himself behind a tree. I think he hid there from me because 1 minute he was there and the next he had gone. I could, however, see part of his body. The tree didn't cover him completely. I instantly thought, Bigfoot. But, hell man, this is Wales. They wouldn't have these creatures here. Canada and many other places in the world, yes. My father-in-law told me of many strange things that he had encountered in his life, particularly in the western parts of Vancouver Island, where the family for many years had a cabin in Port Renfrew. But again, even though this was Wales, I had no doubts whatsoever that what I was looking at was definitely a Bigfoot. For sure, I'd seen these creatures many times, and they are all a little different. Some are tall, some are not so tall. Others, probably youngsters, are quite short, relatively speaking. Some have red/brown coloring. Others have all kinds of color, from a dark cream through to black. The one thing they all have in common is their heavily muscled build. The things I noticed when he turned fully facing me, staring right at me for those seconds, were his build. He was incredibly wide-bodied with very heavily defined muscles on his legs, arms, chest, even his midriff. His body width seemed huge. I hate to even guess how wide his shoulders were. And the fingers of his hand on his left arm were lower than his knee. The other arm was held outward, touching a branch. As we stared at each other, I realized that what I thought was well-worn clothing was fur or hair, growing very thickly on the head and shoulders, but less thick on the rest of him. The main thought I had in my mind was how damned ugly he was, and that look he gave me. He was one of pure evil, absolute, total hatred. I also realized my whole body was shaking. A wave of sheer terror was making my body have dreadful tremors, and worst of all, I dropped my cup as I tried to get off the stone, but I just could not, for the life of me, move a muscle. All I could think of was getting away from there. The more I tried to move, the worse the tremors became, and I felt as weak as a child. I'd never seen one up close and personal in the flesh. I had no desire to stay. I was willing my body to get away from the place, but I could not move a muscle. I suddenly started crying. I never felt so emotional in my life, and there I was, sat on a stone in the middle of a forest clearing, sobbing my heart out. I couldn't cry hard enough. I felt totally hysterical, and my sides hurt. I was putting all of me, heart and soul, into crying like a baby. I was crying so hard I felt like vomiting with the sheer effort of sobbing. I haven't a clue how long I sobbed for until I simply stopped. I wiped my eyes, got up from my rock seat with no other thought in my mind other than I needed to get the hell out of there. As I stood up, I realized I wasn't in the same spot where I originally stopped. I was on a rock for sure, but the rock I got up from was about 2.5 miles closer to the entrance track to the forest. That realization sent another wave of fear through me. I just needed to get back to where I parked and get myself back home. I got up from the rock easily enough, which was comforting in a way. I took no more than 2 steps when I realized my foot was hurting like hell because one of my shoes was off. I went back to the rock and looked, but found nothing. I also realized one of my socks, too, was missing. Not on the foot of my missing shoe, but on my other foot, the one with my shoe still on. My mobile phone, which was in my jacket pocket, started receiving texts. As I walked as fast as I could with just one shoe, the damn phone kept making the same tune over and over. I was receiving texts at a rate of knots. I pulled the phone out of my pocket, and the first thing I noticed whilst these damn texts were overwhelming me was the time. I expected the time to be a few minutes later than when I had sat down, but from the time I originally sat down on the rock, more than an hour and 8 minutes had passed. My eyes were still too teary to even look at who I was getting all these damn texts from. I put it back in my pocket and continued hightailing it back to the car. I was still receiving texts when I finally got to the car. I got in, started, and got away from that place. The sound of incoming texts continued until I was about half a mile from home. I drove home as fast as I dared, but probably no more than 20 miles per hour. I couldn't bring myself to go any faster. My whole body was shaking. I ached in every bone in my body, and I just had to keep blinking like crazy to keep my eyes clear. I got home, called my son, who lives about 300 meters from me, made a cup of tea, and felt totally out of it. The worst feeling I've had my entire life. I've worked in war zones and some real dangerous places in the world, but the fear I felt, and still do, was totally overwhelming. My son arrived, he being the family expert on anything that remotely smells of conspiracy theories, whether they be Bigfoot through to government cover-ups. And he's also a keen follower of your channel. He told me I looked as if I'd seen a herd of ghosts all at once. He said I was more than pale, I was white. He noticed I was shaking badly as I tried to get the story out. He didn't dismiss anything I said. In fact, he was going a bit over the top doing his detective work, firing more questions than I had answers for. I finally, after some time being grilled, remembered the multiple texts I had and hadn't even looked at yet. He snatched my phone from me and was absorbed in it for ages. Every time I asked who it was, he held his arm up to stop me talking. Finally, he handed my phone back, and once again I felt a fear that made me shake all over again. I became as scared as I had been since that creature began staring at me. Every single text I received All 78 of them were welcome to from different countries around the globe. Excuse me, I just ate a big bowl of popcorn before I started doing this. From different countries around the globe. Sorry, hold on. The first one welcomed me to Ireland, followed by Greenland, Canada, America, Japan. In total, 78 welcome texts from 26 countries. Canada welcomed me 4 times. The USA 3 times. Russia, Azerbaijan, Georgia, Nigeria, Namibia, China, South Korea, Japan, Australia, etc. All of them, without exception, were time-stamped inside of the same minute. My son at this point was probably as pale as me. The next thing that happened threw me even more, if it's possible. When I finally went to bed that night, I undressed, threw my lone remaining shoe and sock into a waste box, and realized my underpants were inside out and front and back to front. They followed my shoe and sock into the box pretty damn quick. They all went to the trash dump the next day. I didn't really know what to do. Should I see a doctor? Call the police? At least do something. I didn't sleep a wink that night, and the following day was as bad. I still, to this day, can't get that creature's stare out of my head. I also hurt from the top of my head to my toes. Where I had walked on the gravel road back to the car, I had cut my foot badly, and my whole body felt like I'd played a game of hard rugby. I was equally as worried about the texts. My son suggested I contact my cell phone company and ask about them. Maybe they would have a reasonable explanation for them. I tried all ways to make copies of all the texts I had. I looked on the internet to see if there was an easy way to do it, but the optimum method seemed to be to screenshot each one separately. I tried, but it just seemed stupid doing one at a time and difficult to tell which order they came in. My son suggested I try the phone company, and they were bound to have some way of helping me preserve all these texts. I called them 3 days later, explained what I wanted, and asked a very nice lady if she could help. She said they would have records, but not sure what they would include. She promised to get back to me as soon as possible with a solution of some kind. I did receive a call back the following day from a fellow this time, and all he really wanted to know was if I wanted the records for a court case or any other legal reasons. I told him my phone had acted very strangely and that I had a whole load of texts and I wanted to keep a record of them. He asked a few questions, went through the whole security thing, and he then asked me why I wanted them. He also mentioned that my phone appeared to misbehave. And what did I think had happened with all those notifications? That I thought was no real business of his, so I just said I was going to get my phone looked at. I needed those particular records. He asked me for details of my phone, which I thought they would have had on record anyway, such as the IEMI number, serial number, and other things, until I got a bit uptight with him and said, "Send the damn copies and bill me for the costs." He finally said he would print out the record forms for the entire day, and I would get them in about 5 days at no charge. When I got up the following morning, my Samsung S7 phone was mysteriously factory reset. I wasn't able to get any of my data back, not even my phone book and contacts, nothing. That has just about scared me as much as anything else. Is this even possible? Or was it pure coincidence that my phone reset itself? You can also guess that I never got any records of any kind from the phone company. My life right now is just about on hold. I've seen a psychologist twice, and whilst he has diagnosed me with PTSD, I don't think he believes a word of what I told him. Whilst he agrees I had some kind of a traumatic experience, he says that my problems are probably of my own making, and I need to face up to that before I can get better. I've thrown the Valium he gave me. I really don't need that crap. I haven't done a single work assignment anywhere in the world since this shit happened. I haven't been back to the place or even remotely close to where it happened. My wife is naturally worried, and after speaking to our son, she believes my story, as does her family. The fact remains, though, what do I do? I can't get any answers for what happened to me. In fact, I haven't begun to try and get an answer from anywhere, other than my family doctor and the psychologist he sent me to. What could have happened to me? I don't have a damn clue. Was I most upset over the Bigfoot sighting or the events that followed? I don't know. I'm totally lost, and I am totally lost and out of it. I can only think, as my son does too, that by writing and sending this to a sympathetic ear may be of some help in some way. I must admit, having taken almost 4 separate days to write all this out, it does make me feel a little better, knowing I'm not the only one. You, my friend, are an absolute godsend. You're my last and, in truth, the only resort left to me. Many thanks, Steve, for what you are doing and for so many people by giving them a voice. Edgar. And there you go. Oh, got popcorn all over the place here. There you go. Take it from away, you will or leave it, right? That is number 1. No, I think that's the second email. Or third of what after that email would follow to be dozens of exchanges between Edgar and I. Even his son and a colleague of his, who Edgar feels is possibly, could be the world's most foremost, whatever you want to call him, expert when it comes to this topic and more, right? So, there you go. For a lot of you people out here who heard the name Edgar being mentioned in the past, that's where it came from. That's a doozy, is it not? It's a little bit more than monkeys screaming in the night, banging on trees, and using trail cameras to catch them. Right? Right. Interesting, right? Crazy. I hope I can get over there. If I do get over there, I'm going to get him to take me to that rock, and I'm going to sit there with him. Or by myself, whatever. Alright, what do we got here? Hope I haven't read it. We're going to find out. Experiences from Montana. Thank you for all your beautiful videos and a safe place to share our encounters. I have 2 stories to share with you. The first one is a second-hand bit of information, and the second one, my own personal story. The first story comes from the Crow Indian Reservation of Montana. I was dating a Crow man at the time. I'm not sure how the subject came up, but he shared several experiences with me about he and his family's encounters with the Sasquatch people. The first one was when he and his brothers were little. They were out playing in the woods when they saw some bushes rustling. Thought it was probably a skunk or raccoon in the brush, and they started throwing rocks at it. He said, suddenly, an enormous Sasquatch being stood up and yelled at them. He chased them, and they ran home as fast as they could. Looking back as an adult, he said it could have caught them at any time, but only seemed to want to scare them away and back home. He joked it was rather like an elderly neighbor yelling at naughty kids to get off his lawn. He described it as about 8 to 9 feet tall and had white hair. You felt it was an elder. He said there were many sightings over the years, males and females in varieties of colors, mostly brown and black, but a few gray and white. A brown female would peek around a tree and look at the laundry on the line. She seemed curious. He said a fire came through the area and burned out the food sources that they ate, and they moved on. They haven't seen signs of them since. They also have many stories of the little people, and sometimes they are seen with the Sasquatch people. Most of them will not talk about the little people as it's considered disrespectful and bad luck. But there are stories of the little people helping the Crow people. I won't repeat those stories out of respect. I have Crow and Cheyenne friends on the reservations that have had many Sasquatch sightings and UFO sightings. Maybe I can convince some of them to email you their personal experiences. I wish I had more details, but that's all I can remember about his stories. Second-hand accounts are always lacking in the details. My personal story happened about 6 years ago. I was on a camping trip near Nye, Montana, with my pregnant friend. That's spelled capital N-Y-E. This was going to be the last girls' camping trip before she was tied down with kids, and we wanted to pick the perfect spot. After hiking, we saw a wooded little island in the middle of the river. It was so perfect, and we waded out and set up our tent in a clearing in between the trees. We had a lovely night. We chatted away, cooked some great food, and went to sleep. I woke up in the morning to small pebbles hitting the side of the tent. Then something poked my side of the tent, like a finger. It was close to the zip-up window, so I unzipped it a crack to see what was outside. Absolutely nothing. Yet, something unseen continued to slowly poke the tent. I poked my finger to the outside. Then it would poke. Then it poked the top of the tent. I poked the top of the tent. I was not afraid, I was just more curious as to what this invisible being was. I didn't feel any malevolence from it, more like it was just playing a fun little game. This went on for several minutes, and then it seemed to get bored and stopped. When my friend woke up, I told her what had happened. We looked all around camp and no clues, no prints, nothing disturbed. Just a beautiful Montana morning with an odd experience. I'm Irish and grew up on myths about fairies, giants, and other fae folk. In Celtic legends, the fae, or the unseen people, are divided into the Seelie court and the unseelie court. The Seelie court is made up of beings that are neutral. That's S-E-E-L-I-E court. They can either be helpful and friendly or malicious depending on how humans interact with them. Do something that annoys them, and they can be mischievous to outright dangerous. The unseelie are always darkness. They're always dangerous and malicious. They both live in a realm different than us, but close. Some legends have them living under the earth. Every single culture around the earth have these stories. Iceland has the elves, Europe, Asia, the Americas, Africa, the Middle East, all have these stories as well, just different name for the others. It makes me wonder if our ancestors actually knew the truth, and we turned truth into mythology as we became, quote, civilized, end quote. I think there is truly the unseen peoples. Not just the Sasquatch people, but probably many other beings. I have no idea what was poking my tent. I should have been able to see something. But all I could see was a tent fabric being poked by an invisible finger. I don't know what type of being it was, but it let me know it was there without showing itself. I hope someday we get the truth about the other people, or the good folk, as the Irish affectionately called them. Thanks, Steve. Thanks for all you do. I'll just leave my name as S from Montana. Montana's a big state, but a small town, if you know what I mean. I gotcha. Yes, it is. These are older emails, you guys, alright? Older emails. I appreciate that big time. Absolutely appreciate you saying that in. Sorry it took so long to get to it, but there's nothing I can do about it. There's so many. They're so informative, so interesting, aren't they? There's so many honest people in the world. There's so many good, honest people in the world, thank God. And there's so many good people here. It's such a good thing. Alright. Hello, Steve. I admire your courage and purpose. I believe it is a righteous one and that you will be protected. In 2012, I was camping outside of Steamboat Springs, Colorado in my truck. I took a side road, off a side road, off a side road. Came to a dead-end camp spot in the thick, dark woods. It wasn't the best spot in the world as there was no view, but I was just ready to park it. I was playing my guitar in the driver's seat of my truck with the window down, as it was summertime, when I heard a sound. I stopped playing and listened. I donned my headlamp and turned it on, and right then, about 6 feet in front of me, an owl flew through my headlamp beam. I then began to hear, just outside the beam's range, a tree slowly cracking over. I turned off the light and just listened. I knew there were moose in these mountains, but a moose cannot slowly crack over a large tree. When I heard the tree finally go down, I saw a barely discernible flicker of light in that general direction. It was pitch black, with no wind that night. I don't even remember seeing the stars. I was a bit intimidated that this creature was trying to intimidate me, or was he just saying, "Hello, human, you are presently in Bigfoot territory, watch yourself." Steve, I know you have a guardian who watches over your special destiny. Angels never fail in their duty to their human words. I'll read it one more time. Angels never fail in their duty to their human words. If you ever happen to have another encounter, it will not go down unless the angel sanctions it. So rest easy, brother. When you are climbing up thickly forested, grizzly bear infested mountainsides in the dark, there is a seraphic guardian next to you. You, like all of us, will not die until it is our time. Keep doing what you're doing. You are in step with the divine plan, I believe. Your friend, Matthew Whitaker, Petersburg, Alaska. Okay, man. Appreciate the words of encouragement. Absolutely appreciate it. Encouraging words are good for everybody, no matter what the topic it is, right? Encouraging words from fellow human beings is good frickin' medicine that we all need. Encouragement. Appreciate you, man. Appreciate you. Alright, one more. You hear that rain outside? It is absolutely pouring rain. I actually went, my buddy who owns Trophy Hunter sport fishing. We were out in his backyard in a drift boat fishing for salmon in the river today in the pouring rain while the power was out. Still pouring. Now, this is titled Scared Now. Hello, Steve. I hope this is you. I've watched several of your videos and find them fascinating. Truth is, the word I would use to describe your work. I'm older, 62, and have a young dog, almost 3, who forces me to get out and walk almost every day. She is exceptionally alert to noises and other people/dogs/horses where we walk. I see her react usually before I hear or see anything, and my hearing is still well above average. We took a short hike just out of Darrington, Washington last week on the Mountain Loop Highway, Beaver Lake Trail. We arrived early so I could let Kara run without disturbing other hikers. We were the only ones in the parking lot. We proceeded down the trail, which follows the Sauk River, S-A-U-K River. Sauk River. A light snow falling. About a mile in, I paused briefly to admire some moss-covered trees, and that's when I heard it. Thump, 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 pause, thump. This sound repeated 2 more times. Not exactly the same, but similar. It sounded like someone beating on a big log with a big log, not a stick you could hold. It was about 100 yards back from where we came from. Kara did not react at all, but continued to search, smell, and carry on. She is a Karelian bear dog and sees and smells everything, but absolutely no reaction to the thumping. We returned down the same path after about another 3/4 mile. I did not think much about the sounds because the dog was not worried. She reacts with growls and hackles up when she is unsure of game/people/unseen entities, but nothing. When we arrived back at the parking lot, there was still no other cars. We passed no one on the way out. I assumed we maybe heard someone near the highway causing the thumps. When I returned home, I looked at the trail on Google Maps. The highway was not close where I heard the noise. Nothing but heavy forest. That's when I got scared. The sounds were real and did not seem possible to be made from a person. And I saw no people. What the heck did I hear? I am reluctant to return or hike anywhere near there by myself again. I don't understand why Kara didn't react. I have hiked alone often, without a dog, and never had any encounters. other than the feeling of being watched, like a cougar or something. I know a cougar wouldn't make those sounds, and I also know Kara would have reacted to an animal close by. Sorry to ramble on, but I truly needed to tell someone. I don't like being afraid of something I don't understand while enjoying a hobby I've done my entire life. Thanks for listening. Sincerely, Dan Miller. No problem, Dan. I've experienced the thumps, I think 3 times now. 3 times. One time I was on my quad with the motor running, and I couldn't feel, I don't think I felt it, but I could hear the ground. I thought it was the ground being pounded by a boulder or something. I don't know what it was, but I could hear it over top of the motor of my quad. And coincidentally, I was only about 500 yards from where an elderly man, used to leave food for these people all the time and had Polaroids of them. And I received those experiences from a man who was friends with him and also seen these beings himself. Interesting, right? And that was back when I was looking for these people intentionally, which I don't anymore. And I was trying to narrow down where I felt they may be. And it turns out I bullseyed it. And I heard those thumps over my quad. And sure enough, I lost my shit. Didn't lose my shit, but I'm like, holy shit, I'm out of here. Just like that. Spun my tail and took off. But anyway, I hope the places mentioned in this email help somebody, or somebody else might have something more to add to those areas, right? Your own experience. Maybe, possibly. You're finally hearing that somebody else had something go down where you did. And that's going to be enough to knee-jerk you into sharing it here with all the people, right? Getting off your chest. At sharemystory@howtohunt.com. Now, that's something I want to share before I forget. I keep forgetting. There's a page on Instagram, the Boneyard Alaska. Alright? I haven't had the time to dig to learn more about these people, who they are, what they're doing. I do understand they did the Joe Rogan podcast. Might be one I should probably try to find and listen to so I get up to date on what's going on. Anyway, these people are not only gold miners, but also during the thaw, they use high pressure water hoses and a pump, and they have been blasting out a bank of permafrost and mud, dissolving it with the water, and exposing not just one, but multiple skeletal remains of ancient, extinct bison or some type of buffalo, mammoths, mastodons, whatever you want to refer to them as, woolly mammoths, tusks, entire carcasses, skeletal remains. Predator, some kind of massive frickin' bear. The skull is ridiculous, the size of this animal. Now, this is where it gets very interesting. These people have been uncovering these carcasses, these skeletal remains, ancient. How many thousands of years ago? I don't know. I can't quote that right now, but I will. I'm going to look into these guys. Now, here's the crazy part. It's not just one or two. One thing that is amazing to me, what I want to find out is why and how there are so many carcasses from dead prehistoric beasts stacked up in this one small area. Huh? Like, that's, for me, that's very, very confusing. Right? But here's the real crazy shit. They are now finding numerous bones, femur bones, of woolly mammoths and more that have been cut, cleanly cut with a saw. A fine saw. Perfect saw cut in half. Right? And when he posts up the picture of those bones, if I have them, I'll try to figure out how to get it on this new editing program. And I'll put them at the end of the video. And then the last one that he shared, I saw, he pointed out, if you look close and zoomed in on the saw cut, were white, leftover weird particles. White. Little bumps, little little balls of white substance were stuck to the definite saw marks on that bone. How interesting is that, right? Does it tie into the topic that's dominating this channel? Everything ties into everything. Every single thing that's going on is related and connected. There's no way getting out of it. It's just trying to figure out how it's connected. Who cut these bones with saws? Modern saws. Or were they laser saws? Who knows, right? What's the substance, the residue left over from the saw cuts? Who had a saw back then? Who dragged all of these massive, massive, heavy carcasses into this one area? How was a mastodon tusk burnt? He said recently they found a tusk that was burnt. You could tell it had been burnt. But anyway, pretty interesting, right? The Boneyard, Alaska. That's where you can find it yourself on Instagram. And I'll look into it more. I'll see if I can listen. If I get time, I'll listen to that podcast because I want to learn. I want to learn what the hell's going on. Because that, for me, this is another potential puzzle piece. Huh? What? Right? This directly relates to us being lied to and misled. In a big way. And don't forget, some other special people have proven that our DNA was intentionally manipulated thousands and thousands of years ago. Intentionally manipulated. Interesting. Very interesting, right? There you go. Now, I should probably get my butt out of here, get inside the house, get to bed, and hopefully have a better day tomorrow. Get a good night's sleep, which I haven't had for a while. Holy cow! Yeah, I'm relaxed now. This relaxes me when I do this. When I speak to all the people and share all the people's voices, it totally relaxes me and grounds me out. I almost like I need it now, right? But I need more information. I need more information. I need more honest information from the people of the world. I need it bad. So, if you can, if you would, and it doesn't have to be what some people have been calling, oh, it's a good one. There's no good or bad ones here. This is just information. It's not entertainment. So, what you may think is insignificant may be gold to someone else, alright? Share my story at howtohunt.com, and whatever you got, it will be shared word for word. I give you my word.